What happened in episode 3 of season 2 of House of the Dragon? How does it compare to the book, and what does it mean for later in the season? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. We're covering House of the Dragon in full on this channel, as well as George R. R. Martin's wider world of Ice and Fire and The Lord of the Rings. Welcome. Let's start in the Riverlands and a boundary dispute between houses Bracken and Blackwood. This is a rivalry well known to book readers that has been going on for centuries, millennia even, and they need little excuse to come to blows. You may remember back in season 1, a couple of them even managed to get themselves into a fight over the hand of the then Princess Rhaenyra, even though it was pretty obvious to everyone she wasn't interested in either. As I said, any excuse. Here, the starting point may have been whether or not the Brackens moved some boundary stones, but they quickly turn it into a matter of which claimant to the Iron Throne they are supporting. The Blackwoods are Team Black, and the Brackens are Team Green. This is called the Battle of the Burning Mill in the books. You see the windmill in the background here, and it's the first proper land battle of the dance. It's over quite quickly here, but it tells us a lot about what the war will be like. The Riverlands will be at the heart of it. It's pretty horrific and brutal, and it's not just going to be a civil war of region versus region. Neighbouring houses will turn on each other too, and it's not the last we've heard of the Blackwoods in particular. Most importantly, this battle has turned the civil war into a proper war. So far we've had assassination attempts, plotting, and the occasional dragon skirmish, but no real battles. This will force people's hands. So, how do the Green Council respond? They consider trying to get the Tullys to control the Blackwoods and the Brackens, but old Lord Grover Tully is rather doddery and ineffective, so that wouldn't work. They could wait for the Lannister army to fully mobilise and head east, or the Hightower one in Old Town. Here we get another mention of young Prince Deeren, who is down there with his young dragon Tessarion. He's definitely going to be making an appearance, though probably not in the next few episodes. But both of those armies are weeks away at least. So we get to Criston Cole's plan. Head out from King's Landing, gathering forces as he goes, and take Harrenhal. It's basically the same plan he was working on with Aemond a couple of episodes ago, but they weren't able to go through with it because Otto was Hand of the King. Now they are in charge. Aegon wants to support this attack on Sunfire, his dragon. He's itching for a fight, but is persuaded not to. Partly by Criston Cole saying that if they bring a dragon, Team Black will have to bring one if they want to oppose them. Both sides here are still, in their different ways, trying to minimise the possibility of this turning into a full-scale Field of Fire dragon war. Let's see how long that lasts. Anyway, Aegon is only really dissuaded from flying out by Larys, whispering to him that the rumours are that his mother will take the reins of power in his absence. He really is sowing the seeds of distrust everywhere in Team Green. But Aegon clearly believes him and rewards him with a place on the small council. Criston Cole's army heads out without Aegon, but with the newly arrived Gwaine Hightower, Alicent's brother. He's clearly angry that his father has been ousted as Hand of the King and blames Cole for it. His contempt is clear, as is his arrogance and stupidity in getting them spotted by Baelor flying overhead, though, to be fair, Team Black clearly learned about that army from other reports too. Expect that to be a focus for the next episode. Meanwhile, Daemon has flown to Harrenhal, as we expected, after his falling out with Rhaenyra. I'm doing a whole video on Harrenhal tomorrow, so look out for that. But in summary, it is a huge castle in a strategically important central location. It belongs to House Strong at the moment, and Larys is technically Lord, but in his absence, his great-uncle Sir Simon Strong is in charge as Castellan. I'm interested to see more from him this season. Simon Russell Beale is a very good actor, and this was an intriguing start. As in the books, he here gives up the castle to Daemon without a fight. But two really intriguing things happen here. First, Daemon insists on being called Your Grace rather than My Lord. This catches Sir Simon by surprise because, although this is definitely a term of address that can be used for royals other than the king, Joffrey was called it before he was king, and Sansa says she will be called it when she marries the king, it is most associated with being the ruling king or queen, and Daemon insists on being called it. He then goes on to talk about the presence of the crown in the Riverlands. implying himself, presumably, and marching on King's Landing to claim the Iron Throne. This might just be misdirection to keep up the mystery of Daemon's motivations, but on the face of it, Daemon is here staking his own claim to be king, independent of Rhaenyra, hence the confusion of Simon Strong. Let's keep an eye on that. It might be nothing, or it might be everything. The second really interesting thing is obviously his vision or dream, or, well, we don't really know what it was yet. He sees young Rhaenyra stitching young Prince Jaehaerys' head back on, whilst accusing Daemon of always running off and leaving her to tidy up the mess. The meaning there is pretty clear as perhaps Daemon's conscience, but then suddenly he is outside, in front of the weirwood tree, which, and I love this detail, appears to be right out at the water's edge of the God's Eye Lake, in the middle of which is the Isle of Faces, magical, mystical, and probably the heart of the weirwood network. The branches of Harrenhal's weirwood tree seem to be all in one direction, straining away from the castle and towards the isle. Are we seeing some weirwood magic going on here? Alice Rivers then looks at Daemon and simply tells him that he will die in this place. Spooky and foreshadowy, to be sure. Who is Alice Rivers? Well, we'll do a video on that soon as well, but in the book she is the most obviously magical person in the whole dance. If we're going to get non-dragony magic in this story, it will be with her. Daemon is right to look concerned and discombobulated by the whole experience, and I'm sure I'll be talking about it a lot on my live stream on Thursday over on IDG Live. Over on Dragonstone, we get confirmation that this is a solo mission by Daemon. He hasn't reported back at all, and the Black Council seems to be nearly as ineffective as the Green Council, fluctuating between advising all-out dragon attack and trying to get Rhaenyra to flee to a place of safety. She interprets that as basically a coup attempt by people unhappy with her leadership. She, along with Rhaenys, is the person doing most to stop the war from escalating. Rhaenyra, however, does send some of her family to a more safe place, Rhaena accompanying Joffrey, Aegon and Viserys to the Vale, with a view to perhaps taking Aegon and Viserys on to Pentos later. This is a Team Black Plan B, as they are going with 4 unhatched dragon eggs. If the rest of the family gets wiped out, they can start again. We weren't in on the conversation between Jace and Lady Jane Arryn, wherein she pledged Rhaenyra an army in return for a dragon to protect the Vale, but one suspects she had envisaged a proper full-grown dragon that could go into battle if needed, rather than what Rhaenyra is actually sending her, children with hatchlings and a teenager without a dragon to ride. It will be for Rhaena to convince Lady Jane that this is okay. Let's see what she says next time. But let's go back to early on in the episode, where standing over the grave of Arik and Eric Cargill, Rhaenys puts into Rhaenyra's head the idea to get in contact with Alicent, probably the only person left on Team Green they might persuade not to let the war escalate any further. While Rhaenys may not be right about Otto being incapable of sending assassins to Dragonstone, he was plotting to do just that at the end of Season 1, remember. She is right that younger, hotter heads have now prevailed, and whatever original motivations everyone may have had, things are about to escalate quickly. Bloodlust will soon take over. So, having rewarded Mysaria for her role in saving Rhaenyra's life, yes, it was her who alerted the guards to Sir Arik's arrival, by effectively employing her as her new Mistress of Whisperers, Rhaenyra immediately uses Mysaria's knowledge to set up a meeting with Alicent. A last chance at peace, perhaps. I'm sure this will generate quite a bit of debate in the fandom, as this most definitely didn't happen in the books. Rhaenys was quite the warmonger there, rather than a conciliator, and although Rhaenyra was definitely less warlike than Daemon, say, she didn't go to these lengths to avoid war. But the changes on the show have gone far to establish the strong bond between Alicent and Rhaenyra as the core one in this struggle, and in the book, Alicent later offers a direct peace offer to Rhaenyra to try to end the war, so I can see what they are doing here, and perhaps this will be the setup for that later approach by Alicent. In truth, though, this didn't feel much like peace talks. They didn't get into any practicalities of how they might actually stop the war. Instead, it was more like two old friends airing grievances with each other, accusing each other of things and sharing details of their personal struggles. In any event, the key thing here, as well as the obvious fact that the attempted peace talks ended unsuccessfully after just a few minutes, so the war is definitely still happening, is that now Alicent knows that she was wrong about Viserys changing his mind on who should inherit. Does this matter to the civil war? Not really, to be honest. Otto and others have made clear that they have been planning Aegon's accession for some time. Viserys' supposed second thoughts about Rhaenyra were convenient, but not necessary, and the war itself is now too far gone for most people to worry about the details of what actually caused it. But for Alicent personally, this will mean a lot. She now knows that her part in starting the war was based on a misunderstanding. Perhaps she will wonder whether she could have stopped it. Perhaps she could have talked to Rhaenyra first. Expect her to go even deeper into this pit of sadness and self-recrimination that she has been descending into this season. Helaena forgave Alicent during this episode, which was clearly exactly what Alicent needed to hear, even if it shocked her to hear it. But this will just send her back to that dark place, I'm sure. So what else did we have in this episode? There are some new members of the Kingsguard, and yes, those are indeed Aegon's friends from the first couple of episodes. Aegon obviously didn't talk to his new Hand of the King and commander of the Kingsguard, Criston Cole, before appointing them, which is just more evidence of how Aegon doesn't really care about history or good governance or any of the niceties of ruling. Aegon also appears to have some Valyrian steel armour, inherited from Aegon the Conqueror, which is massive news. We didn't know either Aegon had such a thing, and bar a brief reference in a pre-release chapter for The Winds of Winter, we didn't know that anyone had such a thing. Not even part of a suit. Valyrian steel is next level in the world of Ice and Fire. We see Aemond again in the arms of his lowborn lover, something Aegon promptly mocks him for and praises her obvious prowess to keep him interested for so long, though from what we've seen, Aemond's trips there are for comfort and confession rather than what Aegon assumes. We meet Ulf White in Flea Bottom. He's clearly the life and soul of the party. Everyone knows who he is, welcomes him in, jokes with him. He doesn't seem particularly discreet, though, telling complete strangers that he's the son of Balon the Brave. That's Viserys and Daemon's father, making him Daemon's half-brother and Rhaenyra's half-uncle, if he's telling the truth. Quite the family to claim, and he only just escapes being caught proclaiming Rhaenyra the rightful queen in front of Aegon. He quickly leads the call of Hail to the King, but that was close. And yes, we did see him last episode, though we weren't told his name then. He was the guy staring up at the hanged rat catchers. From what we've seen so far, he seems charismatic, but out for himself. Not as sympathetic as Hugh Hammer, so far anyway. And that's now 3 dragon seeds we've seen. 1 to go. Keep an eye on Seasmoke, the dragon, as well, who has grown restless of late, we're told. Maybe he's grown lonely, suggests Mysaria. I talked a bit last week about the big nerdy lore issue the show has with this dragon. How can Seasmoke take another rider if its current rider, Laenor, is alive on the show? This seems to be a hint towards how they might answer it. Might Laenor be dead now, or the bond broken somehow? We'll see. Finally, we should just note that, as suspected, the new title sequence has changed to show what has happened so far in the dance, this time showing little Prince Jaehaerys and the hanged rat-catchers. There will be a lot more death and destruction on that tapestry before the story is finished. If you'd like to see more videos like this, breaking down the story of House of the Dragon and the Dance of the Dragons, there's a playlist appearing now on the left of your screen. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.